So a couple of months ago, I decided to do a Kazuma Satou build and try to beat Elden Ring with it. While making that video was very fun, the final product was very amateur and unpolished to say the least. That was mainly because I was unemployed and very broke at the time of making that video. Since then, I've gotten a job, have gotten my money up, and upgraded my equipment, so I thought I'd give this run another shot. And as for my previous video, I'll probably just private it and lock it up for the time being. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. For my starting class, I stuck with the astrologer since Kazuma has high int, high luck, and is average across the board. And since I accidentally deleted my original Kazuma character, I had to make a new one. And I think it's pretty close to the original. Now that that's taken care of, let's go over the rules for this run. Rule 1. I can only deal damage with Kazuma's equipment. Heavy quotations on that. Rule 2. Like in my last video, summons will be allowed. I'll get more into that later on. And rule 3. Don't forget to have fun. I'll also be using the same equipment that I used in my last video, so I'll go through that very briefly. For my chest piece, I decided to use Patch's leather armor. I know it doesn't really match Kazuma's shirt and cape, but it's the closest thing I could find to it. As for my leggings, I'll be using the bandit boots, but since I don't have access to them yet, the astrologer trousers will do for now. You can't have a Kazuma run without, and luckily for us, it's pretty easy to get. Unfortunately, it is located in the closest thing to hell in this game. I mean, just listen to the screams of the damned. Now that I've got my hands on my ultimate weapon, I'll quickly go over the rest of the equipment I'll be using. Since Kazuma does have very basic equipment, it's not very difficult to get most of it very early on. After buying the short bow, I went to Weeping Peninsula and got Mighty Shot to replicate Snipe. Then I got Margit Shackle to replicate Bind, and this one is a bit of a reach, but I got Golden Vow as a stand-in for Aqua support magic. I also went ahead and, for the most part, finished setting up for this run. In my last Kazuma run, I two-handed my weapons. That will not be the case this time around. While two-handing my weapons would help break an enemy's poise faster and deal more damage, Kazuma never two-hands any of his weapons to my knowledge. And single-handing my weapons lets me get off attacks and combos much faster. And with Chunchumaru being a dagger, it will allow me to proc bleed and other status effects faster. Now, I know this is gonna sound a little crazy, but there's actually a fourth rule to this run. I didn't go over it earlier since it's a bit more complicated to explain. Since Kazuma has a difficult time leveling up in the series, I thought it'd be fun to throw half of my levels into Arcane. To be more specific, I'll have to put a level into Arcane before I could level up anything else. As to why I chose Arcane, well, it's very straightforward. Arcane is tied to your discovery stat, which is essentially your luck stat. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Kazuma has very high luck. Arcane also has the added effect of scaling up status effect buildup, so it's not all that bad. Before I head into Stormveil, I did want to get another skill that will make this run a bit more bearable. Now I'm off to kill Bernal. Once he's down, I head over to Volcano Manor and join Tanith. And now I can take Bernal's bell bearing to the Twin Husk Maidens and get our next skill, Lurk. Since Godrick isn't much of a threat, I came into this fight with the same equipment I used on Margit. I did underestimate him just a little bit, but even with how bad my build is at the moment, he still went down pretty easy. Now that that's taken care of, we can complete Kazuma's fit. During my fights with Margit and Godrick, I did notice that I was getting plenty of consecutive hits in, so I did the smart thing and got the Winged Sword Insignia Talisman from Stillwater Cave. For my next stop, I chose to swing by the Academy of Raya Lucaria. To be honest, I thought I would just breeze by here, but this stupid ass wolf had other ideas. While this wolf is a pretty weak boss, I'm an even weaker tarnished. For Margit and Godrick, I relied heavily on proc and bleed. I can't really do that if what I'm fighting is constantly moving around and I could barely hit it. On top of that, it uses magic, which I'm still weak to at this point in the run, and my DPS isn't very good either. Fortunately for me, one of those is a pretty easy fix. After going off to upgrade my Chun Chun model to plus 10, I felt better prepared for Red Wolf. Now that I had a massive damage boost, I did feel more confident in this fight. Its constant movement kept things interesting, but it went down regardless. While this fight was very annoying, I think it was still necessary for preparing me for some of these upcoming fights. Next up, we got the Moon Mommy herself, and the difficulty I had between Renala and Red Wolf is crazy. Her first phase was trivial as usual, and she barely even touched me in her second phase. Easiest win by far. Before I go on to the next boss, I did want to pivot into progressing Millicent's and Ranni's quest lines. Millicent's for the Radahn Winged Sword Insignia Talisman, and Ranni's because it wouldn't be a Kazuma run without him trying to get some play. This probably goes without saying, but if there's an opportunity to cheese a boss, I'm more than likely gonna cheese that boss. And once O'Neill's down, I can continue progressing Millicent's questline. Since her questline is a bit lengthy, I table it once I give her the Valkyrie's prosthesis and pivot into Ranni's questline. At this point, a lot of the mid-game bosses don't pose much of a problem to me, so I was able to beat Loretta on my third attempt. After choosing to serve Ranni, I now have access to my next skill. Freeze. There's actually two variations of this skill we can get. We can buy Freezing Mist from Celovus, and then get the far more superior Chilling Mist from this Scarab from the ruins next to Ranni's Rise. Since Chilling Mist is an Ash of War, I'll be using it over Freezing Mist for most of the run. I then went back to Grail's Dragon Barrel to get a few easy runes from Grail, and to fight this Putrid Avatar to get its Opaline Heart tier. That was a lengthy intermission, but now it's time to take on Radahn. In my last Kazuma run, I did allow myself to use the arena summons, since this fight reminded me of the Adventurers Guild fight against Verdia. This time around, I wanted to see if I could defeat Radahn by myself to see if I had improved any since my last run. While I was struggling with him a bit, the power of Bleed and Frostbite made up for my lack of skill and my low DPS. DTS wasn't too bad. Luckily, he only spammed his fireball attack about 3 times this attempt, and again, bleed and frostbite came in clutch. Unfortunately for me, I won't be able to depend on either status effects for Godfrey. I actually like Godfrey, so I was looking forward to this fight. My winning attempt was really scuffed, but it's a win, so we absolutely take those. My fight with Morgott was just as scuffed. Well, his second phase was. The combination of Margit Shackle and my Wakizashi essentially let me skip his first phase. His second phase was kind of annoying though. His attacks are just strong enough to stagger me, but not strong enough to seriously hurt me. But he could also hit a nasty combo at any given moment. So I would fall into a loop of healing, and then getting nicked, and then healing again, but I still got him on my 4th attempt. Before I move on to the mountaintops of the giants, I wanted to pivot back into Ranni's quest line. Now that I made my way to Nokron, I can pick up the Black Wet Blade, which means I now have access to poison. I know I could have gotten a Poison Ash of War earlier, but I wanted to wait a bit so as not to make the run as cheesy. After collecting the Fingerslayer Blade, I went ahead and fought the Regal Ancestral Spirit. For this video, I did want to at least try to fight all the main game Remembrance bosses, but since my job has me all over the place at the moment, I might have to save that for a part 2. For now, I'm just going to take on some of the weaker / mandatory Remembrance bosses. After giving the Fingerslayer blade to Ranni, I headed into Noxella to fulfill Mommy Ranni's request. I'm sure you know how the rest of the questline goes, so I'll just skip ahead to the Estelle fight.
Should I add thee to the list? Another one. Kind of heart. As kind of heart as they.
Estelle was a pretty straightforward fight. I just had to stay behind her big ass head and play for the bleed procs. And after all that struggle, we can finally get engaged to Ranni. While I'm at it, I might as well take care of a couple more loose ends. I did want to progress Millicent's questline a bit further, but first, I made my way to Carrion's study hall and up to Ranni's tower to get the Curse Mark of Death and the Stargazer Heirloom Talisman. Afterwards, I made my way to Windmill Village in Altus to take on the Godskin Apostle there. With the Stargazer Heirloom Talisman, I'll be able to cheese it, albeit very slowly. Once he's down, Millicent will appear, and after exhausting her dialogue, I can move on to yet another questline. I made my way back to Liurnia to get one half of the Haligtree secret medallion off his old head. Now I know Lieutenant's questline isn't mandatory to get the other half of the medallion, but I thought it'd be fitting to complete it since Kazuma is actually a pretty decent guy, in my opinion at least, and I like to think that he would help Lieutenant out. I'm gonna be fully transparent here. After starting up Lieutenant's questline, I recorded about 6 hours of gameplay that got corrupted. This really sucked. Since I had no way of making save states, I had to start over again. I was able to get myself back to where I stopped my last recording, so the grind continues. Now let's get back to the video. Now it's time for the dreaded fire giant, and I gotta say, I'm really surprised at how fast I beat him. His first phase went really smoothly. He usually rolls away from me if I even look at him, but he stayed put for the most part. He did start rolling around more during his second phase, but he definitely could have been a lot more annoying, and I got him on my first try for probably the first time ever. As you probably guessed, I will be using sleep pots for this fight. I mean, they work like Kazuma's bind skill, so there's no reason not to use them, right? I'm not gonna lie, I do feel a little dirty about how this fight went down. I'm not sure if you can even consider this a fight since I put the Godskins to sleep at any chance I got. Very cheesy, but let's move on. Maliketh brings back some terrible memories. In my last run, I spent about 8 hours on him, but I have improved since then, so I went into this fight with a positive mentality. I actually struggled way more in his first phase than in his second phase. While his second phase is intimidating, it's not as tricky as his first phase. You can clearly see how much trouble I was having dodging his attacks in his first phase. That little backstep followed up with Bestial Sling really did numbers on me. I kinda cooked during his second phase though. I did not want to take any chances on Gideon, so I went back to Kaylee to get the Spelldrake Talisman +1 and a few poison arrows from this nomadic merchant. If I can't take him down while monologuing, then I'll shoot him with arrows at a distance. I know it's a scummy tactic, but he sure does deserve it. Up next is my favorite boss, Godfrey. I love this boss fight so much that I spent an hour on it. By my 5th attempt, I had his first face down for the most part. His second phase was a different beast. What I'm really saying is that he showed me his beast and proceeded to tear me a new one, multiple times. But in the end, like always, we prevail.
Thy strength befits a crown.
Before I move on to RadaBeast, I did go back to Rennala and respec into this abomination. I did this so that I would have light load going into this fight. Now on to RadaBeast. I did spend about 3 hours on this fight, but I have an excuse. A really bad excuse. Up until this attempt that I'm showing right now, I had not been listening to any sound cues in any of the boss fights. I know that I really should have been doing that from the start, since the attempt that I actually listened to the boss's sound cues was the attempt I wrapped this run up. If you're curious as to what I was doing before, I would usually turn down my TV, put some music on my earbuds, and just started playing. Anyways, back to the boss fight. Radahn went pretty smoothly, and I almost no-hit him, but I got a bit greedy and panicked a bit once I did get hit. Elden Beast was actually well behaved this attempt. It meleeed for about 80% of the fight, which let me get a few poise breaks in there, and when it used Elden Stars, it didn't start shooting lasers from its sword like it usually does 90% of the time. It was ultimately a good ending to this run. Now let's turn that good ending into the best ending.
Well then, shall we? My fair consort eternal.
Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. It truly means a lot. It's been a while since I last uploaded, but it's not from my lack of trying. My job has kept me pretty busy and has had me all over the place the last 4 months. I've also been doing other runs, but ran into a few technical difficulties with them. Well, the run I did right after my last Kazuma run was a Ghost Flame only run, which was pretty fun. I also beat all the main game Remembrance bosses in that run, which was a first for me. I even had a script about a third way done, but then I started looking back at the clips and just didn't think the quality was quite good enough, so I just scrapped it all together. I had other runs that I had finished, but for one reason or another, I just didn't think they were good enough to put out there. Next vid, I'm going to attempt to beat all the Remembrance bosses in the base game as Kazuma. Well, again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Adios.